Hey Lucas, it's Sunday and that means, of course, I'm eating my microwave stir fry. What you said in your video about black voices resonated with me quite a bit and reminded me of a Reddit thread that I stumbled upon some time ago in the writing subreddit, before this whole round of protests had begun. And it was a young black man who was expressing frustration at the difficulty he was having getting his stories published. He would submit them to publishing houses, and they would come back to him and tell him that his stories weren't black enough. They didn't talk about the black struggle enough, they didn't talk about black issues enough, so they said. According to him, he wanted to write stories about people who were black but living their everyday lives. And there were other authors that also chimed in with similar ideas, that they were people of color, black people or Hispanic people, who were telling stories about families and lives, and sometimes sci-fi stories or fantasy stories about people of their own race, because that's what they wanted to see. They wanted to see stories of that type with people who were like them in race. And they found difficulty in that so many publishing houses were interested in a sort of struggle pornography. That is, some sort of depiction of life as a person of color, rather not focusing fully on the other aspects of their lives, the joy that they have, the families that they have, the everyday moments, but only focusing on specific struggles. Essentially, the point of these young authors was this: it's important to listen to black voices even when it's not about struggles. It's important to listen to their joy. It's important to listen to their anguish, both in equal measure. Oftentimes I feel that we who strive for social justice sometimes focus a little bit too much on the struggles. We really like to take in the amount of struggles and view it and feel emotions in the same way that pornography replaces legitimate connection with people. We need to take both. We can't just take one because it makes us feel good about how much we're doing for other people. We can't just take the one and ignore the other. We can't just revel in the sorrow like it's a pornography and completely dismiss the joys. And so I think this is why there is such a call to support black artists and black businesses in this time. Because yes, we do need to deal with the issue of police brutality and systemic violence, but we also need to encourage community by supporting the good things that people have built that we have failed to connect to. So I guess on the simplest level, it would just be listening to that complaint and reading stories that have black people in them, even if it's not going to rile up some sort of sense of eternal cosmic justice within us. Because again, it's not about us. It's about making sure that we're hearing all the stories. One thing about the new town I'm living in, Verona, Wisconsin, is that it's wonderfully connected to nature in a way that many suburban areas just aren't. There are trails crisscrossing the town in many directions. They go in between neighborhoods and marshlands. There are some wonderfully preserved areas even within the city limits. Another thing that this town has a lot of is community gardens. I've looked through them and I haven't participated yet. But one thing that I am going to be doing to feel a little bit more connected to nature is planting some things myself. I've got a bunch of beans here. While I was living in the Philadelphia area, I felt pretty disconnected from nature and disconnected from anything resembling the natural world. Now these beans are probably engineered by humans to be tasty, to be long, to be quick growing, but there's still something a little bit mystical, a little bit magical about the growing of plants yourself. In a way, to me, nature is a tabernacle. A tabernacle is a place where God comes down to be with us. And after the tearing of the curtain in the temple, God told us, essentially, to meet him everywhere and anywhere. No longer limited to a single visit by a high priest once per year. We can now worship God everywhere. For me, this means participating in creation in the form of growing plants, which he both told us to enjoy plants, and as part of the curse, we have to cultivate them ourselves. I always find joy in producing things. By the way, Lucas, I really enjoyed viewing the virtual play that you participated in. It was very funny, and as always, you play a great comedic character. I'm sad that I can no longer make sketches with you, but perhaps we spent a little bit too much of our time in those last few weeks coming up with sketches for the show. Still, what are we going to remember in a few years from now? Are we going to remember all the boring schoolwork we did during quarantine? Or are we going to remember the ridiculous and oftentimes pretty stupid web show that we put on for all the friends that we could no longer hang out with? My training seems to be going pretty well at Epic, and I'm just 2 weeks in, but I think it's the kind of environment that I would thrive in. They expect us all to work pretty hard and know quite a lot, but if there's anything I love doing, it's learning. So learning the very strange language that most of the back end is written in has been a pretty cool adventure so far, even if it has led to me banging my head on my desk numerous times during the workday. One thing that I do whenever I get too frustrated to even continue coding is I'll go outside and take a bike from the company bike share and just bike around the countryside outside of the campus for a while. There are a number of fields where there are cows and sheep, and I biked up and down some country lanes and just thought about my programming problems while going a little bit too fast for the dirt roads that I'm going on. I think I'm going to like it, and I'm really hoping to see continued success and further learning in my job. I'm also hoping that you get something pretty soon. It does seem pretty tough right now. It does seem quite dire in terms of a job situation. I'm surprised that I got something, actually. I thought that everything was going to fall straight through, and I'm very grateful that I do have a job. Maybe if you have too much time on your hands, you could come visit me. If you did, I'd probably pay for gas, considering your financial situation, and you could stay in the guest room, or I guess if you really wanted to, on the other side of my queen bed. I've got a Comfort Select mattress, so you can adjust the firmness or softness of the bed to however you would feel comfortable. I don't know a ton of people in the area yet, so it would be pretty cool to have someone I know come visit. That being said, however, I did go to church today and I met some people. Wow, that's incredible. It's exciting, isn't it? I met a guy named Joshua who works at Epic as well, in a different department and a different job, but he kind of knows the ropes, and he's been on the job for about 8 months now, and he's invited me to the small group that I went to this evening. So I went there and I met a few other people as well, and I'm really surprised because as lonely as I've been for the last 2 weeks almost, it seems like I'm finally meeting some people and making some friends. So Joshua said that we should probably get lunch sometime, which I'm definitely going to take him up on. The lunch at Epic is pretty good and not that expensive, so I would love to take about an hour out of my day and go hang out in one of our many excellent cafeterias. The main cafeteria that I usually go to, by the way, is called King's Cross. It's so named because it looks pretty much exactly like King's Cross Station. All of the buildings are themed, and it is a little bit like working in a theme park. You know, minus the rides, but there's a lot of scenery, and I thought it was a little bit overkill at first, but I realized I know my way around campus pretty well at this point so early on, because I can tell based on the artwork and based off of the theming where I am. So even though I've only been there a short time, I easily had memorized my route based on the works of art and the statues that are in between where I work and where I go eat. Some of the buildings are pretty incredible, by the way. There's a castle building, there's a D&D themed building, there is a chocolate factory themed building. It's honestly a little bit excessive. Well, there they are. There are my beans planted. I'll keep you updated in the next weeks as long as I don't neglect them accidentally. We'll see some sprouts in a few days. I look forward to hearing from you on Wednesday. See ya. dropping beans all over the floor. Someone help me.